Stories Pulse brings you real-life stories filled with emotions, challenges, and inspiration, capturing the true heartbeat of life.
Margaret Wilson sat in her living room, her heart pounding as her daughter-in-law Amber paced back and forth, her voice sharp and unkind. Amber's words echoed harshly in the room as she said, "Look, Margaret, let's be practical here. You're not getting any younger, and managing this house is only going to get harder. Why not make things simple? Sign the place over to me now, and you can have peace of mind." Margaret felt a mixture of hurt and frustration building up inside her. Here was the young woman her son had once adored, now standing before her and talking as if she had no right to her own home. It was hard to believe the person she was looking at now was the same Amber she'd tried to welcome years ago. Gritting her teeth, Margaret steadied herself and met Amber's gaze with a calm but firm expression. "Amber, this home is the one Henry and I built together. It holds every memory we ever made," she said. "You'll get no signatures from me." Amber rolled her eyes, her frustration evident, but Margaret held her ground. As Amber's demands grew sharper, Margaret remembered the day Amber had first come into their lives, arm in arm with her son James. He had been so happy then, and she had wanted to support him in every way possible. Margaret hoped Amber would mature into a loving, supportive partner for James, and that one day they would create a life together full of love and respect. But as the years went on, Margaret had watched the marriage strain under Amber's unwillingness to change. While James worked tirelessly to support their family, Amber's carefree lifestyle remained the same. She spent freely and lived as if nothing had changed. When James finally urged her to focus on building a family, she reluctantly agreed, and soon their son Blake was born. It didn't take long for Margaret to see that she would be the one raising Blake. Amber's attention was always somewhere else. Then, after years of strained companionship, James reached his breaking point. He gave Amber an ultimatum. Either she matured into a responsible partner, or he would no longer be able to support her. The words stung, but Amber couldn't, or wouldn't, change, and they continued on as if strangers under the same roof. When James began to immerse himself in work, leaving early and returning late, Margaret feared for his health and well-being. Her worst fears came true one rainy night when she received the news. James had tragically died in a car accident. His heart, she believed, had given up long before. Now, just 2 years after James's passing, Amber was standing here in Margaret's home, asking her to sign away everything she held dear. Margaret's heart sank as she looked into Amber's cold eyes. Yet something in Amber's words troubled her. Amber hinted at knowing something no one else knew. The doctors had told Margaret that her health was failing, and she had only a limited time left, a diagnosis she had carefully kept private. Margaret had hoped to keep her final months peaceful, and in the only place she had ever truly called home. But Amber's words that day, so cutting and ruthless, planted a sense of dread in Margaret. It seemed as if Amber was up to more than simply trying to manipulate her for the house. She felt a lingering sense of unease in her presence, and this sense of danger only grew when Amber began inviting strange friends over, filling the once quiet home with loud laughter and harsh late-night conversations. Then, one evening, Margaret overheard a conversation between Amber and a suspicious-looking stranger. She crept closer, trying to listen. "I need more time," Amber was pleading. "I'm working on getting the money, I swear." The man's voice was harsh. "Time's up, Amber. You better find a way to pay up, or that old woman might have an accident if you catch my drift. Her inheritance money would come in handy, wouldn't it?" Margaret's heart froze as she understood the dark reality of Amber's intentions. Her mind raced, and with shaking hands, she gathered a few essential belongings, including her most important documents and some cherished mementos of Henry and James. She left the house quietly, stepping into the cold, misty night, heartbroken to leave her beloved home behind, but knowing she had no other choice. As she walked down a deserted road, feeling lost and defeated, headlights cut through the fog. A taxi slowed down beside her and a kind voice called out, "Ma'am, are you all right?" Margaret looked up into the concerned eyes of Sarah Johnson, a taxi driver who'd stopped on her route. "Do you need some help?" Margaret nodded, explaining her situation in a trembling voice. Sarah, deeply moved, promised Margaret she would help. "Why don't you hop in, ma'am? I'll take you to a safe place." Sarah drove Margaret to Golden Acres, a nursing home known for its caring staff and peaceful atmosphere. Over the next few weeks, Sarah became Margaret's constant visitor. She would bring flowers, tea, and small comforts that brought Margaret joy. Their friendship blossomed in those quiet days, filling a need in both of their hearts. For Sarah, raising two young sons alone had been a lonely journey. She often thought about how Margaret had reminded her of the family and companionship she missed. For Margaret, Sarah was the daughter she had always longed for, a loving, compassionate soul who saw her for who she truly was. Then, one gentle morning, Margaret passed away in her sleep, leaving Sarah with a bittersweet feeling of loss and gratitude. She had only known Margaret a short time, but the friendship had brought new light to both their lives. A few weeks later, Sarah was surprised when a lawyer arrived at her door, carrying a briefcase and wearing a kind, professional smile. "Miss Sarah Johnson?" he asked. "I'm Everett Barlow, and I represent Margaret Wilson's estate." Sarah blinked in surprise, not understanding what this could mean. Mr. Barlow explained, "Mrs. Wilson has named you as the sole beneficiary in her last will and testament. She wished for you and your children to inherit her home, her savings, and everything she owned." With trembling hands, Sarah took the letter he handed her and began to read Margaret's handwritten words. "Dearest Sarah, if you're reading this, I'm watching over you. When my own family turned their backs on me, you gave me something more valuable than words could ever express. Your kindness, your time, and most of all, your friendship. I leave my home to you and your boys, not out of charity, but out of love and gratitude. You deserve a safe and happy place to build your dreams. Live well, Sarah, and raise those boys in joy. All my love, Margaret." Tears streamed down Sarah's face as she read. Margaret's final act of love had given her and her boys the security they had longed for, a home filled with memories and now with new dreams. Sarah and her sons moved into Margaret's home, where they marveled at its warmth and beauty. Each room felt filled with Margaret's spirit, and as Sarah worked to make it their own, she remembered Margaret's kindness with every step. With Everett Barlow's encouragement, Sarah enrolled in college to complete her degree in business management, finally taking a step toward her long-held dream of starting a small catering business. Her boys were thrilled to have rooms of their own and a backyard that became the setting for endless games and laughter. One evening, Mr. Barlow stopped by with a bouquet of flowers. As he handed them to Sarah, a gentle smile spread across his face. "I just wanted to see how you were settling in," he said warmly. They shared dinner, laughter, and stories about their lives, and soon he became a cherished part of their little family. He offered Sarah support and encouragement, not only as a friend, but eventually as something more. 1 year later, Sarah watched her sons play in the backyard with Everett, who had become a father figure in their lives. In that time, she had completed her degree, started a successful catering business, and found a love that was supportive and true. Looking up at the sky, Sarah whispered, "Thank you, Margaret." She knew that somewhere her dear friend was smiling down on her, having left a legacy of kindness and hope that would carry on for generations to come. Margaret's final act of love had given Sarah and her children a new beginning, one filled with dreams, laughter, and the enduring memory of a remarkable friendship.